Welcome to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, the president of Dale Carnegie Training, Tokyo, Japan. My special guest today is Fara Taraie, which is a very unusual name. We'll hear about that more in a bit, but she is the country manager of ImpacTech, which also sounds incredibly interesting too. So we're going to hear more about that as well. But you mentioned to me just before we went on air that you've been here for quite a long time.
Yes.
I think you mentioned about 17 years or so. You've actually even become a Japanese citizen, so well done. And let's think back to, well, why are you here in Japan in the first place? And let's try and just go through a little bit of your history and get some insight into what you've been doing, and then start looking for some points to talk about your experiences with leadership. So why are you in Japan?
Okay, I'm very honored to be here, first of all. Thank you for having me. I came to Japan around 16 years ago, actually. I was 18 years old. My high school was in South Korea. I came for traveling to Japan for 6 months.
Okay, wait a minute. Why was your high school in South Korea?
Okay, I have been all over the place. First, I was born in Middle East, and then I grew up in Europe. My elementary school was in Europe, and my high school was in South Korea. Middle school was half Europe, half South Korea, and then we moved to South Korea, and then for university I came to Japan. So I have been all over. I have lived in, I think, 6 different countries. Wow. I was always a new kid in school who doesn't understand the language they're speaking. Because we went to Italy and then Germany and then France and then South Korea. It's like this whole culture shock. And my dad is kind of I would say Sparta. He would say, if they can do it, you can do it. Just go to school. I don't understand what they're saying. So that was the idea. So I came to Japan because I kind of felt, I was in love, this is stupid, but since I was a kid, I was in love with Japanese cartoons. I used to love Japanese cartoons, the little frogs and everything. So I was in Korea and I was like, I have to see this country. It's just like 2 hours flight. I will never get the chance. So I flew over and just wandered around and loved it. And I applied for a scholarship and somehow I got it. I came through MEX, actually.
You did pretty well. You not only applied for a scholarship and you got it, you actually wound up at Todai.
Oh yeah, that's
so
true.
let's go from Korean high school to the very peak of Japanese academic excellence at Tokyo University. So how on earth did you get into Tokyo University when you've got, millions of Japanese trying to get in and finding it extremely hard?
Actually, it's not that I just get from high school exactly into Tokyo University. I came here, studied Japanese. I got a scholarship for Japanese school, and I studied Japanese. And then I went to Iran for 2 years. University, I got accepted there, and I was like, I have never lived there, so it's a good chance. Let me try. Let me see if I can actually write and read like they do, which I couldn't. I actually couldn't write and read. So I went there for 2 years, and then I applied through the embassy, and I got here. And then I took the entrance exams, and somehow I got into Todai. It was quite by chance. I never thought I would get in. I kind of applied. I was like, oh, what's worse than no? And then I actually got into all the 3 universities I applied to. And I was quite surprised. I guess maybe there was a bit of a kinder version towards someone coming from outside. Maybe they were kinder. They liked my background. They liked my ambitions. And I was working on nanomaterials for architecture at that time. And
so nanomaterials for architecture. You're just rolling this stuff out here.
Sorry, I don't know.
We're talking about lunch, Nanomaterials for architecture.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I was in love with sustainable design. Actually, I founded a company called New Norm Design just to do sustainable architecture design. And at that time, this is like 20 years, nearly 20 years ago. And at that time, not 20 years ago, actually, I didn't found the company 20 years ago, but when I studied architecture, it was like 18 years ago. And we didn't really have any word called sustainable design. We had green architecture. That means they used to put plants everywhere. And I somehow felt like this doesn't make any sense to just take out the trees, build something, and put another tree on top of it. To me, that didn't sound sustainable enough. So why are you taking the nature out and then just putting it on top of a tree, on top of the building? So I did a study about materials, and it seems that real sustainability starts with materials. Because actually architecture materials are the ones that affect the ecosystem the most, from mining, from construction, transportation, all those things. And I came up into this whole science, let's category called nanomaterials, that you can get the thinnest, the strongest, and the most sustainable materials with like high technologies that do not harm the environment. Super expensive. I don't think we can still like afford any of that in construction. Like nano carbon tubes that you can build buildings like 1/10,000th of the weight, or the speed, the strength, everything. And I got so involved into that I started doing research and writing my thesis about it. And that's...
So now, if I think about architecture,
Yeah.
it's a very classic discipline. So are you doing something which is classical architecture, or are you doing something which is in the broad frame of architecture but a little bit off to the side in this sort of nanomaterials study?
So this is going to be a bit complicated to explain. First of all, ImpacTech Japan is completely different from New Norm Design. Just so that you know, they're two completely different entities, and ImpacTech Japan is an actual NPO that helps startups and other teams, businesses who want to build a business in Japan, how to build it. I give them the knowledge for that. But New Norm Design, it's sustainable materials, any material. It doesn't really even need to be nano, because right now, nano, it's way too expensive to afford. Like when you go 1 gram of a material is nearly $1,000. No one would want to afford it.
And 1 gram is $1,000.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that is way beyond imagination prices. However, just imagine the same material when I started nano was $27,000. So right now it's
a bargain.
It's a bargain. True. But I'm hoping after time and we develop more, we do more, I would say grow more in this stage, it gets cheaper and cheaper. And you have to understand, with nanomaterials, you need much less as well, because they're much stronger, they're much more flexible. You don't need to like fill up all your columns with tons and tons of concrete. It can be hollow completely, for example.
Okay, so you're doing sort of architecture, but you're not learning how to design, buildings per se, like doing office buildings or houses. It's not that type of architecture that you're studying. It's something much more complex by the sounds of it.
Actually, I do both of them. I do architecture. I bring sustainable ideas to the client.
Okay, all right.
For example, we did an office, co-working office, and for Caring. It was 2 years ago. We did an office for Caring. They wanted sustainable, and we got a gold lead from US for the building. So we use all sustainable materials, flooring. It's not all nano. I'm not saying we are going to use the nanotechnology. I think that's how I came to Japan first, from that research. However, I entered into more sustainable materials, sustainable flooring, walls, ecosystem, I would say sound isolations. Everything can be sustainable. It's not just putting a tree in front of your building.
Okay, so you graduate from Tordai,
Yeah.
which is amazing. You've done architecture at Tordai, that's amazing, but you've also done architecture with a particular slant. So what happens after that?
That is such a good question. So, if we want to, you mean in the future, or?
Well, I'm trying to get some tracking through your career for our viewers and listeners to understand,
I understand,
how
yeah.
are you running ImpacTech
ImpacTech.
Japan today from doing architecture at Tokyo University? What happens in between?
Yes. So after I graduated, I started working in big corporates, big Japanese architecture corporates. Just to learn the ecosystem, to learn what it is, how do they build all this? You need to have the base knowledge. You can't just say, I'm going to use the highest technology, I'm going to pretend I know everything and everyone follow me through. That just doesn't work in Japan very well. So I started working with big corporates. I have been to Nikkei, Yamashita Seiki. I actually went to Ito Toyo-san's place as well. He's a very famous architect. So after all that, I was going through a stage of, why am I alive? You might wonder. I was 24 and I constantly wondered, why am I alive? And this is a taboo. No one would want to mention it, but I went through a whole stage of depressions and all those things that we are too many people on this planet. Like, what do I do with this? Why am I here? And all those things. And I started thinking about so why do I look at society and where I am as a negative thing? What can I do to make it better? And that's when ImpacTech Japan actually came true, because I started to join startups for sustainability, like new generation batteries, population control.
When you say you started joining startups as an employee, as an investor, what?
No, it was like I was the COO, for example, or I used to consult them. That was like when I was like 26, 27, or 28.
So you left Japan Inc., and now you started ImpacTech yourself as your own company.
Oh no, actually it's originally it's a Singaporean company, but they wanted to come to Japan. And I was a startup in one of their programs, and they told me, hey, we think you can run this program for us. You can help the startups.
So it was like an incubator or something, and you were one of the members of it, and they recruited you to actually bring their company to Japan.
Yes, kind of like I am the country manager. Actually, I am the one who designs the programs for them. I joined with.
And this is who? Who are we talking about now? We're talking about
ImpacTech. ImpacTech, there are 3 different ImpacTechs actually. There's an ImpacTech Singapore, ImpacTech Thailand, and there is ImpacTech Japan.
Right.
ImpacTech Japan is an MPO. It's like a Ippan Shadan.
Okay.
While those 2 are 2 different entities. I'm the director and board member of the ImpacTech Japan.
Okay.
So ImpacTech Japan originally, the other teams, they're not exactly specifically doing social good and social investment or social innovation. They mostly are involved in impact technology, like the future deep tech mostly as well. So
So these companies are for profit,
these companies are for profit.
but yours is an NPO.
Mine is an Ippan
So why is yours an NPO and not a for-profit like the others?
So the first thing is that in Japan, when you say social good, it's very hard to be for profit. The society cannot associate for social innovation and social good very easily with for profit. The second you bring for profit, first of all, you will have many doors closed at you as for social good. However, the idea was I didn't want the startups in Japan to be, because when you become an NPO, you have to kind of get grants, sponsorships, and you can't really get for-profit business in reality. And that was quite stressful for me myself as well, because I was doing boot camps, I was doing lectures, I was doing different things. So we sat down with Nippon Foundation. I'm one of the biggest foundations in Japan, who they want to introduce innovation into Japanese
So Nippon
market.
Foundation is started by Sasagawa Ryuichi,
Yes.
the notorious Sasagawa
Yes,
Ryuichi,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Okay, and so he's, well, we won't go into his whole history, but let's say he ended up at the end of the war with a lot of money when no one had any money.
Yeah.
And one of the outputs of that was to have this Nippon Foundation, which distributes money to different entities around the world, okay? And yours became one of them, okay?
Yes.
So how did you manage to get money out of Nippon Foundation?
Well, we kind of designed the program that the issue I had was when you want to be social good in Japan, you have to be kind of an NPO. I'm personally against that. I do not accept or agree with that at all. So the idea of a program was we build a program that can teach the social startups and social innovators to run a business as a business. You don't have to be NPO to be doing good. The idea was we want to normalize that. So even for the program, if you want to be in the program, you have to be a kabuki shikaisha. So you're doing social good, but you're running a business. So we have lectures about business, about marketing, about accounting, all of those little lectures. We put that no MPO program or no social good program is going to teach these kids, or how to register even a kabuki shikaisha. How do you hire someone who can calculate your market profits? Like we do like really even basic things, because I suffered with that a lot. How do I make profit off of an MPO to support the projects was a big no in Japan. Most foundations will not give you a grant if you're not an MPO. So if you want to apply for a grant in a company, in a foundation, in a company, on those things, you have to be an MPO yourself to receive something. You don't have to be in foundations, but you have to be an Ippan Sharan at least to receive something.
And at some point, you have started to attract people to work with you as salaried employees of the NPO?
Yes.
Okay, so how did, it's hard enough for foreign companies to attract staff at all to come and work for foreign entities to a great extent. So how do you, as an NPO, attract Japanese to come and work for you?
Okay, that is such a good question. Right now, I only have 5, 6 staff, I believe. When I started 2 years ago, 2 years and a half, I was the only one. Actually, I was a single entity. And I'm going to be very honest. I hired over 10 people and I have fired most of them. I'm not even with the same team I started with. There was only one person I started with and still is with me.
So this is not the cuddly, fuzzy,
No, I do not.
cotton wool encrusted NPO we're thinking of. This sounds a bit more
No, I
edgy.
do not.
So let's go back and look at that, because you've been living in multiple countries, educated in multiple countries. You've gone to Torde, graduated. You worked for Japan Inc. You start to go down a path. So now you have to attract people to come and work for you. And then how did you do that? And then what were some of the challenges you found? Because obviously half of them got rejected or got turned over because you had 10 and you're down to 5. So obviously you learned something about what you were doing in the process of hiring and developing people that you didn't perhaps know at the beginning. So for a lot of people who are doing hiring, it's good to know other people's insights, other people's experience. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to dig into that
Yeah, I
experience on your
understand.
side.
Okay, first, I didn't originally start ImpacTech Japan in Japan myself. I didn't register the company. They had already registered the company. They were wondering what to do. They used to have a country manager that I think she quit after 4 months because it was quite hard to bring people in and work with. And that's when I came into the thing. I wasn't there exactly at the kickstart of ImpacTech Japan. I just wanted to correct that part. However, how I attracted people. First of all, I don't treat the business like, oh, we are just growing. I think in business is a two-way highway, first of all. It's not you do everything for me, I keep on trusting you. It has to be me trusting them, then trusting me as well, as a kickstart. A lot of startups or a lot of new businesses, when they come with their branding, when they come with this thing, they come with this, well, we were this brand in that country, we are this person in that country, and people are going to come and work for us. That's that country. This is Japan. It's a completely different world. So you have to respect the culture, first of all, in that country. Anyone who wants to come to Japan, please read a book at least about the business in Japan.
There's a very good book just there called Japan Business Mastery. Look at that. What a coincidence.
See? Wonderful business.
Read that. That would be a good starting point.
Definitely. So understand that. Second of all, when you hire, I have actually made mistakes in hiring. I hired first as a little bit out of desperation as well. Like, I couldn't find people who want to work with an NPO who wants to do social good. We don't pay high salaries. We don't have like retirement plan or anything. So how do I get these individuals who are bilingual, because my program is fully bilingual, Japanese and English, who have understanding and knowledge of these kind of business backgrounds, who would get paid thousands and thousands of dollars.
Exactly. You said you started this 2 years ago, right?
2 years a bit. Yeah,
so
2
just
years
before the pandemic, basically.
Yes, exactly.
However,
exactly.
as I recall, in the period before the pandemic, there was like, in the 1990s, I think McKinsey published a thing called the Talent War, or the War for Talent, an article. And they were talking right back then about how hard it was to get talent. And I was reflecting on that in that period a couple of years ago, where it was hot, the market was hot, English speakers, bilingual, hot,
Yes.
very hard to recruit people. And as you say, people have no experience, no particular outstanding qualities, having lots of money thrown at them. So the competition was just enormously intense. Yet you're in that same market with an NPO, and as I can imagine, it was hard. So what do you think was the difference that enabled you to at least attract somebody at the initial start, even though they may not have been the right person ultimately, but at least they said, okay, I'm going to come on board and join you. What do you think was the thing you're able to provide to them that got them on board?
I think it's my own personal experience as one of those skilled individuals who went through the interviews, and I see the way I got treated through the interviews, that a lot of these companies tend to think I'm going to be their entity, their little minion, and I'm going to do whatever they wish. Well, you have language, here's your money, go. That's not what I propose to any of my staff. I told them, you have freedom to do whatever you wish. Whatever business you bring, whatever contract you've been, you will get your commission, you get your piece. You have freedom to do other projects against what we are doing. I want you to grow. Every year, I want you to have a goal, and I want you to grow in what you're doing. So I actually literally sponsored my own staff to learn UX design that absolutely has nothing to do with me. I'm not doing UX design, my company doesn't, but I think it will bring her more value in the future. So I don't go like, you're my little minions, and I'm like, kind of like it. I got interviewed a lot. to be very honest, before I started New Norm Design or joined ImpacTech Japan, I had quit my job after 8-9 years, and I got interviewed after interview after interview. Please come and join us. Please, can you do this building that it's $60 million building, and like help us design it. Anything we will pay. That was the idea. But however, the way they talk to you, they just constantly expect something from you. So what would you do for us? What would you do for us? Like, you want an individual, you want a skilled individual, what would you do for them as a business? What can you offer them as a business? And that's the reality of it. You want people to respect you, to work with you, to sacrifice their time with you. They're skilled, they're good. What can you do for them as well? It's not just about money anymore. Because anyone, like, right now you can just buy Bitcoins and get money out of it, you know what I mean? So it's not just about money. You have to bring some other values that is not just about money. I'm not saying all of my staff are happy. I'm very, very kibishi, as Japanese. I'm very strict. I check their emails, say, send me a draft, what you're sending. I don't like this wording. I don't like that wording. Business emails, I go through them all. I'm not the best person maybe for it, but I check every word they say, how they talk to the mentors, how they talk to the lecturers, what kind of messages they send, timing. I have part-time staff that send me every month how many hours they worked on what specifically. I'm not going to go through it specifically. I want him to have the mindset that you're giving me this much time and I'm giving you this for it. So I connect him to other MPOs. I connect him. He has his own business. He wants to start his own business. I'm going to help him do that.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Okay, so basically, it sounds like you're recruiting people to leave you. You're recruiting people to inspire them, engage them, develop them to leave, because they will become better and more capable and be able to attract more money. Would I be correct in understanding that?
100%.
Right, okay. So it means you're going to be constantly having to recruit replacement people.
I do not mind that at all. That's as an MPO. As a social change maker, if I want someone to just do this, I personally don't want to maybe do this for 10 years. So my job as a business is recruit, educate, let go. If I let go and they go somewhere else and they become my connections, I have more connections. Why would I not have someone that trusts me, that respects me, that is grown and goes to another company, and now from an MPO, now she's the networking, the sustainable manager of another company. That's a network for me as well.
So it sounds also like you were saying there before that you had 10, now you got 5, or you've had, 5, but they keep turning over. I'm not sure how the numbers work, but what was it about the people that you had to let go? Was it that they got so inspired they got a better job, or you sound like a very micromanager checking their emails, that they said, I don't want to be micromanaged, I'm out of here, or you were checking emails and realised, well, they actually are useless, I don't need this person. What was going on there to actually cut down from 10 to 5 or lose half of your workforce?
Actually, I replaced them. I replaced 5 with new 5 staff. So no one so far has left because they grow up and things. Actually, most of my staff, they said to me that they will leave when I leave. So I was hoping they grow and they fly away, but now it's mostly they're...
So what happened to the 5 that didn't make it? The
5 that didn't make it, I don't go check inside their emails. I tell them, if you send a business email, send me the draft, I want to check it, make sure it's the right thing and we are giving the right message. So I am quite picky. I'm very picky. I want excellence, and I really need people to be on their ace when they're doing something. And when you work with someone that you give them a task and they want to actually, I kind of felt the other way, they want to be micromanaged. They ask every 5 minutes, so what do I do with this? I'm not paying you for me to think and for you to just do. I'm paying you for you to think and do. So if I have to think for you as well, I might rather not have you there as well.
So, okay, here you've got a culture that's based on risk reduction,
Yes.
no mistakes, no errors, a lot of hierarchy, age and stage hierarchy, senpai, kohai, senior,
Exactly.
junior, and where people are basically trained, horen so, hokoku,
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
renraku, sodan,
Yes.
This type of always getting feedback on what you're doing. I report, I connect with you, and then I get your advice before I do anything. So you've got a very strong culture of people thinking they need to check in all the time with the boss before they
Yes.
do anything,
Yes.
in case they make a mistake. And here you are saying, forget that whoring, so forget that checking with me, what am I paying you for? Work it out yourself. So that's going completely against the cultural grain here. So what's the reaction to this from the staff?
The people who cannot take it and they constantly need to be told, actually, they come to me and say, this is too stressful, I cannot take responsibility.
Now, that's an important statement, isn't it? I cannot take responsibility because that's stressing me.
Yes.
And I think that's something I find in this culture too, that people, if you ask people to work for you, they want to know what's the job statement,
Yes.
And I always think the ideal job statement for a Japanese employee would be written on the back of a postage stamp, so you could get the damn thing as absolutely tiny as possible, so the frame of reference is microscopic, so if you only have to do those minor little tasks there's no danger of making a mistake or stepping out of your comfort zone. So obviously some of those people can't take it. What are some other things that you're requiring of them which they're finding, no, I don't want to do that either, apart from asking them to be accountable?
Except, I actually don't really ask them to be accountable, but I
But when
really
you're saying work
to be
it out for
responsible
yourself,
about what you do,
you make,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you choose what you're going to do and do it, and therefore you're responsible for it, right? Without having said it in so many words, the same reality. So what else are you doing to get rid of these people that you are not finding as suitable?
So another thing that I would say is that, as you said, the job description, they want a specific line. A lot of them, and this is something a lot of foreign companies make a mistake on too, and I do it, but I don't think it's a mistake, is that they make this job description that is like 5-6 pages, and it's just everything they thought about. They just wrote it down, you know what I mean? I get that a lot from outside. I got someone asking for a consultation about job description. They sent it to me, and they said, we can't find anyone to work with us. And then you go look at it and it's job for 5 people and they're looking for one single person. The mindset of Japan is that I do part A and I do part A, someone is going to do part B, and then someone's going to do part C. We are a chain of reaction. We are not just one single entity. So my idea is that you come up with a business, you come up with an idea, you want to work with us on this project or on this program or whatever, you design it. It's completely flexible. You say I'm doing part A or B, but Fara, I need help for C and D. Can you add someone? And I will add someone for them. You know what I mean? However, many Japanese do not do that. They actually take the whole pressure on. They do not do the job like divided equally, or how would you call it?
What is? I'm not going to use the term job sharing because that's actually a different type of splitting up of tasks. It's not job sharing, but it's really about collaboration.
Exactly.
Now, again, this is the country of groupism,
Exactly.
teamwork. You sacrifice for the group.
Yes, 100%.
You push yourself down so that the group will succeed. So you've got that sort of group dynamic going on here, which you would think would lend itself to them being able to say, I'll do A and B, and I want you to help me with C and D, or you do C and D. You would think that the culture would work towards that. But what you're saying, though, is they tend not to want to do that. Why is that?
I think that works in Japan when there's someone already tells you what to do, a lot of the times.
So you're saying that they have to themselves go and approach somebody else and get them to do the C and D part.
Yes.
As opposed to you telling that person, okay, you're going to work with Taro over here.
Yes.
And you'll do C and D and Taro's doing A and B.
Yes.
Okay, so why are you doing it that way? Why are you pushing all that responsibility for them to be able to go and recruit somebody else inside the company to do what looks like their job?
Actually, pretty much, they don't have to recruit. They have to come to me and say, we need people for this part and that part. And I think the culture we have in Japan right now, if you do not complaint. It looks like a complaint if you come and say, okay, I can do this part and this part, but this and this, someone else has to take over. Who can you add for? To them, it might sound like it's complaint, but for me, it's basic 101 task management skill to me. Maybe it sounds like it. And I'm not a super big successful company. I'm not like, maybe altogether the best I had was 10 people, New Norm Design and ImpacTech Japan. I had maybe 12 people altogether at that time. So, however, I would have to be very honest and say that foreigners that have experience in Japan can handle these obstacles a lot easier than Japanese who just went to a Japanese company their whole life, that senpais or dokis or their bucho told them exactly what to do and what not to do. And my idea is not...
So quick translation here.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Doki is your peer,
Yes.
and bucho is your division head, and senpai is your senior, and kohei is your junior. Okay.
Yes. So you will see that the issue with that, why I asked them to do this. First of all, I want them to really feel the teamwork. I don't think real teamwork happens when someone above you divides A, B, C. I want them to feel responsible enough to help each other when something doesn't go well.
So here's a question. Why do you think it should be like this? You know, you've talking about something that's quite different to how the culture's set up. It's quite unique.
Yes.
So why are you right to do it this way? Why aren't you doing it more in a Japanese way that would enable you to recruit people more easily, manage people more easily?
Yes.
You're setting up here quite a complex construct to run an organisation. So I'm just interested to know why you've chosen to do that.
I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong, but my idea of a business, at least a startup, it is a collaboration.
Okay.
It shouldn't have it just one single head. Everyone should feel like this is their project. This is their company. This is their little idea. I don't want it to be Fara's idea that people are helping with. You know what I mean?
But I think in most companies, though, they have a central vision
Yes.
for the company, and everyone then works towards the vision. So Fara could have a vision for the company, and everyone could work towards the vision. And that would be within the sort of normal context of how a company runs. What you're talking about seems to be a little bit different in terms of, I'm not sure, this collaboration with extreme independence. You know, why have you gone for that combination, which seems to be quite maybe difficult for Japanese to grasp from their cultural background, maybe also their educational background? They're not used to doing it that way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would say maybe our business is a bit different because we have to work with innovative people all the time. Like the whole business prospect, it's upon teaching innovators and startups to grow their business in Japan. We are not like just trying to keep something stable and running in one single line. For me, if tomorrow I die, the people who are doing what they're doing, they should be able to do it. If I die by corona or car accident or whatever it is. We have so many investors that come to us that say we will never invest in a business that has one founder, because if something happens to this person, no one will be able to run it. That's, for me, it feels like, because one single person has become everything in the company, and the second you have the word founder in front of you, that whole thing just goes around you and around you. I think you all can have the vision and run it to make it successful. And I do think in bigger companies there are people who actually do these divisions. It doesn't have to be the boss or the CEO, that they divide the task and they work it out. But somehow it becomes very centered towards that person, the chief. For example, the design weaver, the chief designer, you're the head architect, you are so somehow the designer has to tell for people to do it. That's my experience from design. When I was a staff designer all the way to chief, the difference was that when I was a staff designer, I had to constantly feel like I'm not connected to the design, so I can let it go anytime. And that's a big issue. With businesses, if your staff feels like they can let it go at any time, that means they can move on at any time without feeling any connections to what they were doing. If you want to keep high-skilled people, you have to make them feel they belong. I'm not saying you go find someone who has no skills, nothing, they're just writing email and give them full independence. Of course, they don't know what to do. You have to tell them what to do. I'm saying if you want to keep someone skilled, someone we respect in your company, you have to respect them back. And by respecting back, you have to give them the choices. You have to give them power, the skills. You have to teach them the skill sets to do it. Like my assistant and program associate, she's actually 22 years old. She is fluent in English, Japanese, can use 12 different softwares. She studied in the US, came back after Corona to Japan, and middle of Corona to Japan. She's actually 23, I think, right now. And I absolutely love her. However, she cannot divide tasks. So I give her all those tasks to divide tasks between everyone. This is a wrench shoe for her as practice. So she wants to go in the future. I told her in 5 years, you better go to some country in Europe and pick up this and that. It's a joke. But she wants to. She's like, no, I want to be this kind of a person. What do I do for our son here? What do I do for that? She's my second in charge, literally right now.
At 22, 23.
As 23. I spent 2 years and a half literally from teaching her how to write the emails, how to write the messages, how to do this, how to make the documents, how to find networks, and have done all of this. But see, she's super shy. She's Japanese. She's super shy, but she cannot divide tasks. She takes everything, and then you can see it in her face that she's crumbling. So it's a wrench shoe for her. It's a practice. You want to be the future, the best you can be. It's my job, as I have taken you in, to teach you. That's my respect to her. Yes, I am strict. I sometimes get angry at her over small mistakes. However, she appreciates that. She's like, thank you. Or I'm learning for this and that. And she grows. I have seen her grow so much in 1 year and a half. It's amazing. I have worked in big corporates, and the growth she has in 1 year and a half doing the tasks she's given, I didn't have working for 4 years in big corporates.
So just coming back to a point you raised before, which I thought was interesting, most of us are not dealing with startups. Most of us are not dealing with companies trying to bring their businesses to Japan. We're already in established businesses. So there's a certain chaotic nature to companies coming here, starting up.
Yes.
There's nothing set down. There's no routine. There's no structure necessarily. It's sort of chaos in a way. So I guess what you're saying is, for your team, they've got to be comfortable with chaos. They've got to be comfortable with no structure. They've got to be comfortable that they can make things happen without what is normally a framework they can follow. There is no framework because they're all going to be different.
It changes every day.
And it changes every day, exactly right. So that's why you're looking for that type of person.
Yes.
Okay, I see. And so for those people, you're giving them a lot of freedom, you're giving them a lot of encouragement. What else are you doing to keep them engaged? Because again, your 23-year-old young woman is probably not getting paid big bucks, and someone like me says, hey, wow, she's that great, good, I'll double the salary and she'll come and work for me. If she can do all these things, and she can learn so quickly, it'll be worth it. So how do you've got to think in yourself, I've invested 1.5 years in this woman and she's incredible. How do I make sure she stays around? And you need them for a certain period of time. You just can't be losing them every 1.5 years.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll get nowhere in your business. So what's your thinking about what works here to keep people engaged?
Yes, I agree. So I do not think, as I said, it's all about money, as she has been offered before, actually. And one of the startups actually offered her more than what we can afford to give her, and she rejected. So I do not think it's all about money. I think that they can feel like they belong. They feel like this is their business as well. They are part of it. They get respected back for it. And
why do they feel that? I mean, you say that they feel these things. What are you doing with them to have them feel that way?
I don't think I have to especially do something for them to feel that way. As long as you don't do something against them to take those feelings away. I think every human being, when they join a business, they automatically have this feeling of, we want to try, if the first fire you have in you to do things. However, I don't think I'm especially going after them, like babysitting them, things like that. I do not do. However, I do respect them as human beings who are individuals, who have dreams. If they have anything they want to do against what we are doing, please feel free to come to me, to talk to me. Let's figure out what you can do. I think if a business has to try so hard to keep the individuals that they spend so long to educate, and they feel like they shouldn't leave, then that business, for me, in the area I work in, social good, it's meant to fail. If you're,
It's what, sorry?
It's meant to fail.
Oh, meant to fail.
Yeah, I think if your whole business stands upon, I educated this person, now I'm going to make sure they don't go and grow somewhere else, for social good at least, for startups, it's not, you're not going to succeed more because people will feel that way. We'll slowly, we want to all grow, and there's a max my MPO can offer. You know what I mean? I'm an MPO, I'm not Sony, Mitsubishi, or, Amazon, you know what I mean? So if I was a bigger business, to be very honest, if you want a hint from what I know and what I have learned so far and all these businesses that come to me and talk, the biggest hint I have to say is that if you educate someone to work with you, you will see the chances of them leaving is much lower. And what I mean with that is that I get these big corporates, for example, wind power. Recently, there was someone from this, because there's a boom in wind energy in Japan. And they came like, we can't find good individuals that have experience in wind, that can speak both Japanese and English fluently and have like 20 years, and then they graduated from this. And then you look like, and then they have this list of this perfection person. I'm like, what are you going to give them except money at this point? Because you can find someone who's bilingual, has or only knows English or Japanese, or you have to give something up. You have to say, okay, you know what? This person only speaks English, but has experience in engineering, energy, and this and that. He's in Japan. He's a good match. I can sponsor his Japanese classes for him. I can teach him what our company does as energy resources. He has worked in oil and gas for 15 years. Why not bring him into sustainability? He's excited about it. He wants to work with it. Why not bring him in? Why not teach him the kit? So we have these companies they say, okay, I'm going to pay this person, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and they have a perfect resume, and we're going to make sure they never move from here. Why? Why should that person not move? I would move. If someone else gives me $25,000, I would move. The idea is you need to be able to teach them. I would choose, that's why I chose my assistant, my project assistant and associate as really young. I was like, you know what? I teach you what I can. You choose you want to stay and go. But as I said, as an MPO, I'm not expected to have $1 million profit a year company. Of course, the mindset is different. You're 100% right. However, if you want someone to stick by you, you have to be not an absentee parent. You cannot, no one has, just imagine your staff to be your kids. You cannot give birth to a child that speaks 5 languages and is already skilled at everything and is just going to run for you and just come to you and just, you can pat them in the head, give them some cookies, and yeah, here we go. You're going to stay with me forever in my house until I'm 50 years old. I'm going to take care of me. That's not going to happen. You don't do that for your parents, and they spend their whole life for you. You know what I mean?
So what about the innovation side of things? We've talked a little bit about it's an NPO, it's helping startups, it's helping market entrants. It's a very unstructured world.
Yes, 100%.
So changes all the time. Yes. So flexibility, innovation have got to be high on the skill set needs. So what have you found in terms of people's ability to be innovative? And what are you doing to help them to be even more innovative?
That's a very good question. I don't think I can really do anything to make someone be innovative. I think that's something inside you as well, something that tickles inside you, that all I can say I don't do is to stop that. So if you want to be an innovative person, if you have something you want to share with me, you want to work on it, if I have connections, I will introduce you. That's literally half of what I do with the startups, is that I connect them to people that I know might help them. I bring them mentors in, I bring lecturers in. For example, someone who's working for, let's just say, coffee fermentation. So let's go find Starbucks sustainability head and connect them. Why not? You know what I mean? So I do have these connections through my businesses, through my life, and I think I'm a very simple person, that I have good friends and connections as well. I don't look at every human being I meet as a business. It's just a connection. It's interesting, I would say, dai. I see people as an interesting dai. To be honest, dai, how would you say dai in English?
Oh, I guess just the first encounter, maybe, yeah?
Yeah, it's like an interesting encounter. Sometimes I invite the people that are like CEOs of a company is so big, and I go like, you want to go for coffee? and absolutely have no agenda except I want to hear what he did and what issues he had. Or I have startups that they have, I don't know, 50 million. They just did a fundraising for $50 million, and they just talk to me on Facebook. Oh yeah, we did this for, like, I have never met him face to face, but I still talk to him on Facebook. So it's all about, I would say that I give them connections. I give them an open source field that I have limited resources. I'm not a rich person. I'm not the most best person out there. I'm not the most educated person out there, but I have a small field. You can come in, you can play. What do you need? If I can afford, if I can give you what you need, I will try. And I won't hesitate. I'm not getting any profit out of this. If I wanted profit, I would have taken a very, very lucrative job offered to me 4 years ago. So I would say that I do want profit, of course, as a business. However, I do not tend to use my staff as my minions to just make myself profit. I don't have that mindset, which is not a good mindset, to be honest, for a multi-million-dollar business. People do not have this mindset. You might go bankrupt. However, if you just going back to innovation and how you would encourage, I don't think you have to encourage. I find it redundant when they have this question in an interview. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I really want to ask back that to the interviewer, because I get that asked a lot. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And my reply is like, I hope I'm not dead by that. I don't know. What about you? So it's like they're trying to figure out your hopes and dreams, but that's not the point. Innovative people, give them the resources and they're going to even innovate for you. They just don't stop them from it. Don't find an excuse. Don't get scared they're doing better. Don't get scared if this person does well and their name goes out. I have people, they come to me and they say that their boss won't let them do a podcast, or they don't let them put their name somewhere because maybe they get attraction. So they have put that in the contract, that this person cannot use their position or staff or the job to do, I don't know, a podcast, an interview, or even write an article. But I'm like, then why? And the reason behind it is that they don't want to be outshined. We have this in contracts by people.
Is this the ego coming into play here between the boss and the subordinate? Or, as you say, is it trying to keep their people invisible? I mean, we've got, particularly in the bilingual area, some very large players in the big recruiting companies. They're like hundreds of people, and they're all hungry, and they're all looking for people. Yeah. So is this just a defensive mechanism they put in the contract to keep their people invisible to this, roaming group of recruiters who are looking for people like the ones they've got employed? Or is it the ego thing between the boss and the subordinate? Where do you think that lies?
I think it's both to some extent. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's one or another. It depends. I do agree that you don't want your staff to leave, so you want to make sure they do not. However, I think in many areas is the ego. Because your staff getting more, I would say, exposure actually brings it back to your branding as well. You're paying them a salary to do their job, plus they're doing branding and PM and CR and everything for you as well, client relations. They're literally doing that by doing a podcast for you. So I think mainly maybe 60-70% is the ego part, that you feel like, oh, well, maybe this person is going to replace me, or this person wants to make decisions on my decisions and those things. But I would say 30% would be you're scared they would leave if someone else sees them. But if they're that good, they're going to be seen either way by the word of the mouth. So you're stopping your company from getting actually a good, I would say, a good PR at that point, because you're scared that maybe there's a chance of 10% to leave, Okay,
so you're encouraging them to step up and to innovate, be it, doing podcasts or taking on some different form of business or whatever. Okay. Then, a lot of this, particularly in Japan, the whole issue of trust, it's important everywhere, of course, but I think there's a certain emotional quotient in Japan which maybe doesn't play out as much elsewhere. When I first came here, I thought that Japanese were not emotional. I thought they were very logical and technical, and not going, like their faces don't have any expression a lot of the times in meetings. But I've actually, I've lived here over the years now, like 36 plus years. I've realised they're very, very emotional. They're very, very emotional. And a lot of this comes down to they make career decisions based around emotional constructs, which are basically formulated on a trust relationship. They quit their job at this company to go with somebody they work with who started in another company without thinking about their career progression, because like you, I hire people and you get their resume and it's like, what, you went here, why did you go from there to there, and then why did you quit that one and go here? And it's this sort of potted tour of really emotionally based decisions, which has taken them down a certain path, which is always surprising when you sort of come across it. So given the trust is very closely related to their emotional proclivity to make decisions here, what things do you find about developing trust with your team, and what do you do to have that personal trust with you?
I'm not sure if it's 100% there. Maybe the trust I feel is different from what they feel. I don't know exactly what goes on their heads or minds fully. However, I can say that for what an MPO can offer for them, they have been with me, this staff right now, this four plus accountant, but accountant is accountant. So for 5 people, they have been with me for over nearly a year and a half. And I think if there was no trust, they would have left. I would have left myself if I were them.
Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. So what are you doing to create that sense of trust?
I don't know. I cannot tell you that. I really don't know, because I'm not the best choice. I'm a very strict person. And I think it's because I gave them a lot of freedom. I have a completely different mindset. I don't believe in this seishain, you only do what I tell you to do from 9 to 5, and I'm going to promise you're going to be I'm going to entertain you for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I don't believe in this mindset, and I do not do that at all. I actually pay higher, I would say, by hour than other places to include, I would say, for the amount of hours they work and the pay they get is definitely higher than market, what I pay them. I consider they want to spend the money to educate themselves. Sometimes, for example, Corona, they don't travel, but I still pay transportation fees to them.
Oh, okay.
They don't travel, but I told them, you know what, if you find something interesting you want to go see, use that money for that. I'm fine with that. That's no issue for me. So if you can educate yourself with something through that money, and then sometimes they use it to go to CIC Innovation Center, the Cambridge Innovation Center in Toranomon, and I'm fine with it. I give them cards. You want to use the co-working space, go for it. You want to do, and I give them full resources that I would give a full-time employee, but I think they're full-time, and I don't think they're full-time, but they do full-time work. Because
They're not seishain, they're not full-time employees.
I do not. I am myself. I do not put myself as seishain either.
So everyone is a contractor?
Everyone is pretty much contractor,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Because I cannot promise for my MPO that I am going to entertain someone exactly 8 hours a week and they are just going to grow and keep on growing and growing. And I think seishain, because I used to be seishain for 10 years in my life, I felt like it's like a shackle to be very honest. I wanted to do something and I needed permission. I was doing consultation in the weekends and I was told by my boss I can't do that. And I said, why? And he said, because we give you the weekends so you can refresh and come back on Mondays fresh. What's the point of you working in the weekends then? I was like, oh, well, so my weekends actually belongs to them as well at this point. It actually, those 10 years were the most uninnovative years of my life. I went through so many issues, so many other problems, and it hurts me a lot. I think if you want to be a session, you're looking for a house loan, you're looking for, I don't know, a visa status and things like that. Small companies are not
Kids' education.
Yeah, kids' education, all those things. I think you shouldn't go for small companies because you won't even get accepted. Like, even if you work in a company as a session that has been working in Japan for 4 or 5 years, you're not going to get a loan from the bank. So if you're looking for a session status as a worker, as a business, you want to give that, you have to work for a big corporate in Japan because I have done all three status. And I promise you that most places, they will not accept. At least you bring 3 years of your salary for them and prove that your company has a profit of this much a year for the past 10 years. They will not accept you.
So thinking about, you've got a very unique experience here. It's a MPO, staff are contracted, you're contracted. You're dealing with a very open arrangement with startups, which are changing all the time.
Yes.
It's going to have a lot of flexibility. You're trying to keep it all together, but you're not expecting people to stay. So out of all that experience that you've had, which again is very unique, I've never had the experiences you've had ever, what advice would you have for someone coming into Japan who's going to be in a more traditional
Regulated,
role,
yeah.
a big company?
Yeah.
They're going to be jet in, they're going to be the country head, they're going to run this. Based on your experience, what would be some do's and don'ts for them, would you suggest?
From my experience, as I said, do not expect this perfect resume. This perfect human being that is excellent with everything and does everything excellency and has all the backgrounds you will ever need, and they will just come work with you for money. If you really want them to stay with you for at least longer than 2-3 years, to help you grow, you have to help them grow.
And how should they do that?
You're looking for someone in wind energy, for example. You're looking for someone in wind energy. You have someone who's a mechanical engineer with 10 years experience, speaks Japanese and English fluently, but has not worked on a wind turbine for the past 10 years in Japan, which Japan didn't really have much of that business to start with. So a lot of the professionals who are coming to do this job, they don't know Japanese. You will see that they have the wind background, but they don't have the Japanese. But however you add that in your job description, you want fluent English and Japanese, written and writing that even Japanese cannot do sometimes. Like, I have been here 16 years and I wouldn't say I'm fluently writing Japanese. So, and then you want 5 years experience in wind, which Japan didn't even actually have this business side 2 years ago. So how it's unbelievable scale that you are tightening the pool so much. So why not accept someone that you believe can grow in that position and educate them towards what you want? You want to teach them wind power, wind energy. You want to take them to a tour to one of your things, your wind. I don't know, what would you call them? Decals, wind, offshore wind farms. Take them there. Put a lecture for them, half an hour, show them for real. Just, we do this, we do that. Get them like a month or two to do this and that for you. Believe me, the cost will be less than hiring someone, putting all the money and resources into them, and then having them leave you in 1 year.
Right.
That's definitely less.
So you're talking about a certain culture inside the organisation, which makes it a learning culture, an innovation culture, a growth culture, so that someone thinks, okay, I'm going to develop my career here, there's something for me to stay for, and that's going to be the sort of cultural construct you're going to have to create. Okay, what else do they need to do?
Another thing I would say, I don't know if it's very similar to that, ask them what they want to personally achieve. In the interviews, instead of saying, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? What can you do for us? So what can you bring for us? Ask them where they want to be personally in 5-6 years. What do they want to achieve, and how can you actually help them? And that might actually become a business for yourself as well internally.
It's interesting to ask that question, because I think if you ask most people, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Very few people will be able to answer that. We're in a VUCA world here for a start, but also I think for Japanese, because they somehow think that the company will determine where they'll be in 5 years, rather than they have a choice of where they'll be. They'll be told where they'll be in 5 years. So you ask them, where would you like to be in 5 years? They're probably thinking, well, you're going to tell me, and I'll do whatever you tell me.
Exactly.
So, how do you get around that sort of cultural gap between what they've been sort of taught to think and what you're expecting them to answer? Because I know where you're going with this. You're thinking, if I understand where you want to go, then I can do everything I can to help you get there.
Yes.
And that'll keep you engaged and keep you loyal and keep you with me.
Exactly.
So we can get on the same wavelength, right?
At least.
But my point is that may not be such an easy thing to do, because you've got this sort of cultural construct here, which is a little bit different.
Yes. No.
So how do we get around that?
I 100% agree, but you have to understand, I think a lot of the new companies, big companies who want to come in Japan, they want to work in Japan. I would say, though, if you ask someone where they want to be 5 years in their lifetime and what they expect, and they cannot reply back to you, and they do not have anything, but they have an excellent resume, I wouldn't hire them, to be very honest with you.
You wouldn't hire them?
I wouldn't hire them. I wouldn't hire someone who does not have ambition to achieve something, even if they have the most perfect resume down there. Because resume is just paperwork for me. For me, it's paperwork.
Well, one of the things too, you often hear this, that foreign boss running the company notices that certain people have got tremendous capability, has got sort of an existing hierarchy of older people, and they see this sort of younger talent, and they want to accelerate that talent. So they say, Yukiko-san, be really great. Why don't you step up and be section head, or step up and be bucho, or be, the person responsible for X, Y, Z. And Yukiko says, oh, no, I'm not ready. I'll need another 2 or 3 years of experience. So you often hear this, that they feel frustrated that they can't accelerate people's careers when they want to accelerate them, because the people themselves, must come back to maybe this perfectionism element, no mistakes in Japanese culture, that they don't feel ready because they don't think they're perfect enough. So, how do you deal with that?
Oh, yeah. I haven't had anyone who would say that to me so far, but what I can imagine from just top of my head, I think it comes to the responsibility. I think it's the attitude of the company. These people see the people above them, how much responsibility they go to, and when something fails, what happens to them? You know what I mean? And that scares you. Because I had the opportunity once to go one step higher, and I remember my senpai, I would say, he was higher than me. I remember how they treated him when he did the mistake. Actually, he went to interviews, they accused him of things that everyone signed off on. But somehow now it's completely his fault. And instead of trying to fix the problem, everyone was trying to blame him. And actually, when he left the company at that time, they said, do you want to take his place? I was like, no. I definitely do not want to take this place. I think it has to do with the company attitude.
So this, again, is how do you handle mistakes? How do you handle people?
Exactly.
What's the way of communication with people? And well, that's interesting. Group responsibility. I mean, the whole concept of Japanese group responsibility is we're all responsible, so therefore none of us individually are responsible. It's supposed to work like that, right? It's not supposed to be we're all responsible, except when it goes wrong, you're responsible, right?
But that's how it works in Japan, to be very honest.
Any final advice for someone new to Japan? Should they learn Japanese?
Definitely. You want to respect the language, you want to respect the country, you want to work in a country, you want to understand the culture. I have been here long and I still don't. I was always accused that in my big corporate life of asking too many questions, having too many ideas. I was told that I'm bossy.
I can't understand why they would say that to you, Fara. Obviously, they don't understand anything.
Yeah, you should, However, but that's the thing, the idea of being the little minion of the office, then your perspective of what you want to achieve and what they hope you achieve doesn't, when it clashes. I find that clashing completely. So for whoever wants to come to Japan, definitely understand the language. It's part of the culture. It's the respect of the culture. It's very odd for me, for people who come from, for example, US, and they expect the client to speak English. Do you see Japanese go to US and expect everyone to speak Japanese to you? That's not the point. Each country has a culture, has a system. At least try to understand it. You don't have to accept it. The first step is understanding it. And the biggest issue I myself had when I came to Japan, I couldn't understand it. I didn't have to accept it. I tried very hard to accept it before understanding it. Sometimes you have to understand it and says, oh, the Japanese shogunate. I go like, oh, well, that's how it is.
Shogunate meaning can't be helped, right?
Yeah, it can't be helped. Well, that's it. And I couldn't accept that. I went through a very depressing time in my life because I could not accept shogunate in my life. I was like, why can't I fix this? Why can't I do this the way I think is right? Why doesn't it go the way I'm pushing it? And you give them back, coming back to me even worse. And that taught me a lesson. Sometimes it's just the way it is. It's shogunate makes sense. Sometimes instead of trying to change a system, coming up with a new system works better. They can go parallel to one another, which it took me 10 years to learn. So yeah, I'm very slow learner at that point.
Well, I mean, coming up with a new system and running it parallel, that's another podcast right there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big topic. That's a really big topic right there.
Yes, it needs a lot of sophisticated politics, internal politics to make this happen.
Well,
yes.
Thank you very much. I found this fascinating. You know, you've got such a unique perspective on things, your background, what you've done, and a lot of food for thought here about what we can learn from what you've done. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm not very used to podcasts. I hope I did well enough, and what I gave. It's a good information for everyone to use.
It's fresh perspectives.
Yes.
Are always valuable. So you've got a very fresh perspective today. So thank you.
Thank you so much.